My name is Anne and welcome to Idyllwild. I'm here today to show you a tour of our garden and homestead here in Southern Oregon, and also to talk about dry flowers. But first I want to give you a little bit of background, and of course to welcome you here, and thank you so much for spending time with me today. Really excited to share with you some of the things that I'm really passionate about and that I love. And hopefully through this tour of the garden, I can inspire you to garden and to grow flowers and grow beauty in your life. Background about me, I grew up in Vietnam and I immigrated here when I was 11. And where I grew up was in Ho Chi Minh City, which is a very crowded city, very urban environment. And I didn't really have a background in agriculture or farming or gardening. I knew nothing about really plants and how to cultivate them or how to tend them. So I was pretty new to this, and it's pretty recent that I got into growing flowers and just fell head over heels. And I will definitely explain a little bit about how that happened. So when I was young, I grew up in Vietnam, immigrated here when I was 11, and I landed in California, in Southern California, Orange County, which is very suburban. So again, a very different life than the life that I'm living now. And about a few years ago, I made a big shift in my life. I had been working for a nonprofit organization, and I became very interested in sustainability and specifically in homesteading. And those ideas were really transformational for me, but they were ideas, they were concepts, and I didn't know what that was like to apply in my daily life. So I ended up basically doing an apprenticeship for a place called Camp Joy Gardens in Santa Cruz, California. And that was really where I dove deep into homesteading and into gardening, and I learned a lot of the skills that I am applying today, which includes growing an abundance of flowers and also food as well, and how to dry all the flowers, how to make wreaths, how to make art and beauty and create all of that and integrate it into our daily lives. All of that I really learned at Camp Joy Gardens. So I owe a lot of my experience, my skills, my inspirations to that place, and I highly recommend that kind of experience of volunteering or apprenticing for a farm, or even just visiting your local farm to find out what is it like to grow food, or what is it like to grow flowers, where do these things come from and how do they come to us. Those are all really eye-opening, and it may change your life like it did mine. So take a quick sip of tea here. Okay, so to take a step back, at Camp Joy Gardens, I was there for a year and a half, and basically my day-to-day life was being outside a lot, and it was so different than my life before, where I was in an office a lot of the time. And it's just, what we're all used to. We get in the car and we drive to work, and then we go home and we're inside a lot. So it was a complete different change, just the simple fact of being outside a lot. But on top of that, there was so much vibrancy in life all around Camp Joy, sort of like what you see around me now. You can hear birdsong, you could feel the sun on your skin, you could see all the green of the leaves, and the smells of the flowers. It was a very sensory experience. And I can remember just waking up in the morning and watching the dew evaporating from all the plants, and feeling this sense of magic and wonder that I felt I had known when I was really young, when I was a little girl, but as we get older, we tend to forget all of that as we get caught in the rat race. So that magic and that wonder truly was what lit a fire inside me, or planted a seed. And I thought, wow, this is this is the way life should be, is the way I want to live my life, to feel this fulfilled and this connected, and to wake up every morning and really feel the sunshine on my skin, the light on my skin, and know time by the seasons rather than by the clock. So, but it's also not, I would say, it's a magical life, and it's also a hard life, a difficult life, in the sense that there's a lot of hard work involved, a lot of hard physical labor. Some of the things that I would say it's labor intensive in gardening includes setting up infrastructure for your garden, whether that's setting up a fence or buildings that you might need. And the other difficult part of all of that is working to amend soil. That's basically the basic. If I had to say what is the one basic thing to take away to make a wonderful, vibrant garden come to life and grow all this abundance, I would say soil. Like, work on your soil. So whether you have just a small backyard garden or a large garden or even a few potted plants inside your house, it's something to pay attention to, the quality of soil. And for me, one of the things that opened my eyes while I was at Camp Joy was to realize and to discover that good soil actually comes from manure and from compost, which are all byproducts of living beings, right? Manure comes from cows or horses, or basically animals, and compost usually is made from kitchen scraps that we discard usually, and it usually just goes to the sewage and out to the ocean. And it's so fascinating to be in a garden and grow things from kitchen scraps, from manure. And that experience taught me to see life as a cycle, as we call it, the circle of life, what that really means. So in a sense, that experience gave me so much connection that I had been seeking, been wanting. And I carried that with me, as I mentioned before, that ideal and that value and that vision with me. And here we are today, and we are in Southern Oregon, as I mentioned earlier, and I just want to talk briefly about the land that we're on. My family and my partner and I have basically acquired this land only a year ago, so we're pretty new to this location, this spot. But Southern Oregon is really a beautiful area. It has 4 seasons, but it's really warm. It has that wonderful summer, kind of like California, really sunny, really warm. As you can see, a lot of sun on my face right now. And it also has a winter where it can freeze. So what that means is, again, we have 4 complete seasons, and that gives us a really long window of growing time. And again, that allows us for a lot of diversity in what we grow. And so that's, for me, exciting, because in the flower world, that means I can grow peonies, and those do great in cold climates. And I can grow dahlias, which do really great in warm climates. So that's part of the reason why we were drawn to Southern Oregon as a place where we wanted to plant roots and where we wanted to grow a lot of vegetables and flowers and food and fruits and just all kinds of plants. So here we are at this homestead, and we've only been here a year. And when we landed here, we carried a lot of the visions that we had learned at previous farms from Camp Joy and other farms that we've apprenticed and worked for. And we even carried their seeds too with us to this garden. And those ideas, really became dreams for us over the years, as we thought, oh my gosh, how do we bring all those skills we've learned and apply it in our own life and to create our own homestead? What does that look like? And both my partner and I are super inspired by permaculture. So a lot of what we grow, flowers, food, fruits, they all are grown together. They're not grown in, rows in the way that you would see in a conventional farm. So there's a lot of diversity here in the garden, and that's part of the vision that we have here. So we tend to grow things on a smaller scale. We don't have fields and fields of flowers, and we do things by hand. We till the soil by hand. We weed everything by hand. We don't use any synthetic chemicals or fertilizers. Everything is natural and comes from, manure or compost. So it's basically very sustainable, organic. And part of why I mentioned that is because, unfortunately, the floral industry does use a lot of chemicals. Right now, the practice is to use a lot of preservatives and to use a lot of basically fertilizer to pump the plants to make big, beautiful blossoms, and then preservatives to keep them lasting as long as possible so that they can make it through transportation, often far away from other countries, all the way to the United States. So knowing that, it's good to think about where your plants come from, where not only your food, but where do the flowers come from, because you might be bringing into your home unwanted chemicals that you don't want around you. The other aspect of flowers, of the industry that I want to mention, is that especially with dry flowers, there's also a tendency to use bleach. And bleach is used to turn the plants, bleach it out, to take out the color and make it white. And then sometimes people then add color onto it, so make it like a totally different color, whether it's like bright pink or bright green or purple. And that's just the way it goes in the industry right now. And again, I just want to say that as an awareness, and to say that that's a practice you might not want to support, because it does harm the environment and it also may be harmful to you. And so here, in contrast to all that, here, because we grow everything on such a smaller scale, our focus is diversity rather than yield. We're not trying to create as much of one type of flower as possible and then package it all up and ship it far away. We make everything based on the quantity and amount that we are able to grow within our own abilities and within our enjoyment, and also that makes sense for the land here. So we keep a lot of the land wild, it's very forested here, and our goal is to have a few gardens that's enough to sustain us and to grow lots of beautiful flowers for me to sell as a craft. But other than that, part of our scaling is for it to match with the land and for it to make sense with nature, and for it to make sense in terms of giving back to nature and nourishing and tending to the land here. Okay, so brief break. Okay, so that was a long intro, and thanks for hanging in there. Now I would like to shift gears a little bit and talk about all these beautiful things that are on my table, and really dive into all the dry flowers that we have here. So speaking of abundance, you can really grow a lot of different flowers in a small amount of space. And the wonderful thing about plants is they produce a lot. I don't have exact numbers. I'm not really good with numbers, so I'm not going to try to quote how much a plant produces. But I would say for me, straw flowers especially, which is this beautiful pink flower right here, which is one of the very common and very popular dry flower. This plant is amazing. It's so prolific. It starts blooming for me probably around mid-May, and it could go all the way until fall. And it just blooms and blooms and blooms. And I would cut hundreds of flowers off of one plant, and it would just keep going if I just keep cutting. And that's the other fun thing about flowers, as the more you cut them, the more they flower. And that's, yeah, it's just beautiful, that bounty that nature gives to us. And I'm reminded of that often, and always in gratitude of what the plants offer to us. So yeah, so straw flower is a great one, and it's really great for hot environments. And there are so many colors, so many possibilities. So you can see here orange and pink and white. And this is one of my favorites to use, and I talk about it a lot because the way it looks fresh is the way it looks dried. And not a lot of plants are like that, right? Most plants tend to fade and their colors change or they shrink a little bit, but straw flowers remain basically the same. So, and it lasts like this for years, which is, you know, so cool and so fascinating. And it always blows my mind when people, you know, think about buying plastic plants or silk flowers, which are so unsustainable, you know, like plastic flowers, you know. It really breaks my heart to think about that. And meanwhile, you have something like this in nature, which is totally natural, and it feels like crinkly and plasticky, but is completely a natural flower, which means it is degradable, biodegradable, so that once you're done with your bouquet, you could put this in a compost pile and go back to the earth, you know, decompose. So straw flowers are a really good flower to have, sort of a staple flowers for bouquet making or wreath making. I'm even wearing a straw flower necklace. This one I've made, oh gosh, I think 4 years ago. It's been a really long time, and this is how long it's lasted. So, other flowers I really love include larkspur, one of my favorites as well. This one is really cool because the color is this faded purple. Larkspur is great because it's a very long stem, so you're getting this nice fluffy look, and this would be great for a bouquet, of course, having that long stem. And it has really beautiful colors. You know, what you're seeing now is a purple one, but there's ones that are blue, that is like this vivid indigo blue, and it's a color that you rarely see in the floral world, so it's a really good one. And you rarely see in wreaths as well, right? Blue is really uncommon. So it's a fun one, and it's so easy to grow, really easy to grow and fun plant. Okay, and I'm gonna keep going down the flowers before I get to the seed pods. This is another favorite. This is called feverfew. One of my main reasons why I like feverfew is it's a perennial flower. What that means is it will come back year after year. Most flowers are annual flowers, meaning it grows just one season, just 1 year, and then during the winter it dies, and that's the end of it. That's the end of its life cycle. So if you want more of that flower, the next year you have to plant it again. Perennial flowers such as feverfew and yarrow are plants that come back season after season after season. So they just go dormant in the winter, and then they come back alive again in the spring. So it's a great plant because, again, there's just a lot less effort that goes into it. You plant it once and it's established in your garden, and then you don't have to worry about it again. The other reason I love feverfew is it has medicinal qualities, so you can use it in a tea for relieving headaches. And a lot of plants that I use dry can be medicinal plants, and that's kind of fun, like multi-purpose plants that you can use in different ways. So it's not, it doesn't always have to be just for making a wreath. You know, you can have it as a fresh flower, you can have it in tea or in medicine, and of course you can also leave it to go to bloom and to attract insects to your plants and attract bees and other pollinators to your garden. And feverfew is good for that. It's actually known to attract beneficial insects as well. Okay, and this little beautiful, cute little flower is called bachelor buttons. It's another one that's really easy to grow, so that's why I mention it. And it has a really cool burgundy color, and it's super sweet, kind of tassel look. Okay, and here is a really fun filler type plants or foliage. This is Dusty Miller. Oh, sorry, wrong name. This is lamb's ears. and it's fuzzy and soft. And this is a plant that kids love because it resembles a lamb's ears. It's very velvety, and it has the silvery color, or like sage green kind of color. And because it's fuzzy, it's really easy to use in wreaths, and it just brings a really nice texture to your bouquets and your wreaths. And here we have a type of grass, and it's called bunny-tail grass. I'm growing this for the first time this year in my garden, and I'm just falling in love with it. It's so cute. As a grass, it's super easy to grow. And my only caveat to say about growing grass is don't grow it where you have a lot of grass coming up because then it's really hard to differentiate between this grass and another variety of grass. They kind of all look the same. For me, I had to grow mine in a flat, and then I transplant them into the garden so that I know for sure that this is a grass I'm going to keep and I'm not going to weed it out by accident. Yeah, really fun one. It's pretty popular right now. It's a great little grass for all kinds of flower arranging. Okay, this is really fun. Poppies, yay! This one is called rattle poppy, so I don't know if you can hear that, but it's making a rattly sound. This is a special variety that's actually grown locally here at a seed company called Siskiyou Seeds. It's known for, well, it's called rattle poppy because this top part doesn't pop out. Normally poppy pods, this top part opens and the seeds come out of them. So in order for it to rattle, the seeds have to stay inside the pods. So these have been bred specifically for them not to open and the seeds don't spill out. So that's kind of a fun thing. I also really love them because they're bred to be really big. A lot of poppy pods are much smaller, maybe like a little coin size. So this is really a fun one to have when you want a big element in your bouquet, right? Something unique that stands out. So poppy pods. Okay, and here's another. As you can tell, there's so many varieties of dried flowers that you can choose from. This is cress. Another plant that's super easy to grow. It's almost like a weed because it's just so, it'll come up, and once you plant it, it'll come up again and again throughout your garden. I'm gonna zoom in so we can see it a little bit easier. It's such a wispy plant that it's probably hard to see the details. But that wispiness does lend itself to making really beautiful arrangements because it's so, it has this movement to it. You know, a lot of plants don't have that kind of motion. I use this quite a lot to accent bouquets and to make wreaths kind of like pop out more. So before I keep going with the tour of the dry flowers, I just also want to add that dry flowers are so fun to me, and I choose it, or I tend to be more attracted to it than fresh flowers because of the possibilities. You know, you can use seed pods and you can use leaves and stems. It's not just about the blooms. So that's kind of exciting because for me, I get to experience the plant through its full life cycle sometimes, you know, for it to go all the way from blossoms all the way to the seed pods. So that's another way of kind of relating and connecting with plants for me. And it's just beautiful to watch, you know, to experience in the garden the transformation of a plant in its many different forms. Poppies are especially fun in that way because they have this beautiful, very elegant, papery texture flower and vivid colors. So there's this moment in the garden where you're like, oh, the poppies are blooming, they're so pretty, they're so colorful and vibrant. And then very quickly the petals fall off and then they become these amazing seed pods. So then you shift into this new appreciation of them. And it's that way for me with a lot of dry flowers. It's like you get these multiple stages of enjoying the plant. Not to mention that you get to then play with them later, you know, then there's this palette of wonderful flowers to choose from to make wreaths. And for me, that's like fun times 100, you know, because it's, I get to like open up my boxes and pull out all of the different flowers and look at them and put together palettes, you know, go and choose them and put them in my hands and go, do these go together? What about these colors? And then, you know, start to, like the artist in me start to come out, and I start to get to paint the palette onto a wreath, and that's really fun. And it's something I tend to do usually in the fall or the winter. I start really getting into wreath making, and it's a fun activity when the garden has started to go dormant and there isn't a lot of outdoor work that is needed anymore. So, you know, you kind of transition to indoor work, and wreath making for me is that time. And I said before that for me, living on a homestead and being in a garden really connects me to the seasons, and I feel like it's something that we as humans really need, partly because we need time to rest and we need time to go inwards, and winter is a great time for that, but also partly because when you connect with the seasons, there's a lot of variety in what you do naturally. You know, for most of us, our life can be really monotonous, or it was for me when I was working in an office. Is this sense of an 8 to 5, you know, and that's your schedule for most of your days. With gardening and being outdoors, the days are so different season to season. You know, spring is, you know, chilly, and things are just starting to come back to life, and our work is all centered around preparing soil and making garden beds and cultivating seeds, or starting seeds and getting them to a seedling stage and then getting them ready for transplanting. Summertime, we shift completely because it's so hot. We're shifting to watering the plants, you know, making sure they stay moist and stay well hydrated. And we also mulch a lot, and we focus on weeding because, you know, everything is popping up in the garden, including the weeds. And then in the fall, or late summer to fall, we shift towards harvesting, you know, so we're just trying to keep up with the garden because it can produce quite a lot. So we're harvesting vegetables, we're harvesting fruits, we're harvesting flowers, and it's during this time that I really appreciate dried flowers even more, because as the heat comes on, if you're harvesting fresh flowers, you really have to beat the clock to keep those fresh flowers vibrant. Whereas with dry flowers, you can really take your time. And I like that. I like to go a little bit more slowly. So for me, you know, you harvest the flowers, and I just bunch them with a rubber band, as you can see, and I just hang them upside down to dry. And usually I choose a cool, dark location out of direct sunlight. And within about a week or two, it dries up like this, and is ready to use. So as soon as it's dried, I pack all the dry materials into boxes, cardboard boxes, and then I put them in storage, put them away until I'm ready to use them for wreaths or floral arrangements. So that's basically my process. It's very simple, nothing complicated. I don't use a lot of, you know, specialized tools. You don't need special storage rooms or even cold rooms. Really, all you need is a dry, cool place, which could be a closet, you know, it could be your bedroom. I've hung my flowers in a living room before, and it's actually really beautiful decor as well to have, you know, all these bouquets of dry flowers throughout your house. Yeah, so we just went over a little bit of the process of drying, and now I'll dive back into giving a more brief overview of the type of flowers that can be dried, and then we're going to take a quick break and we'll do a little tour of the garden, and I want to show you what the plants look like growing in the ground. Okay, so we had gone through all of these flowers. I'm going to move them to one side so we can move on to the next ones. This is a really fun one. This is called Echinops, and I was introduced to this flower and many of the other flowers here at Camp Joy, and I just thought this guy was so cute. It's a little ball shape, a sphere, and it's bluish, and it's just so unique. It's not something that, you know, I rarely ever see something like this in a bouquet. And it's so fun because when I make a wreath with just this, it just looks unreal. Yeah, and it's fun. It's a thistle. So it's a plant that is also a perennial, which means it comes back year after year. And it tolerates heat really, really well. And it's also very drought tolerant. So if you're in a really dry, hot region, this is a great plant to have. Here's another fun seed pod. This is called Scabiosa. And I see this flower quite a lot actually, or this seed pod used a lot in weddings. And I find it to be really easy to grow. Yeah. So each of these individual pods have seeds on them. So you could even pull each of these little seeds off of the pods themselves. Here's one that's already been out. And plant this, and you'll have this plant growing in your garden. And I want to show you, this is what it looks like when all of the little seeds have been pulled off of them, and it's really beautiful and elegant as well. So you could use it in its kind of ball shape with all the seeds attached to it, or you could take the seeds off and have this version instead. Yeah, super fun plant. So another seed pod that is like my total favorite of all time is Lunaria. Ooh, Lunaria. Yeah, this is also called the dollar plant or the money plant, as you can see, because of its coin shape. But I really like the name Lunaria a lot better because to me it does look like a full moon. And this plant actually grows wild here in Oregon. And when I learned that, I was just totally astounded. I was so happy because I love it so much. And I thought it's just so sweet. And that crinkly sound that it makes is so amazing. And the fact that it grows wild here just blows my mind. And what this is as I was mentioning before, is a seed pod. And you could even see, I don't know if you can see it, I'm opening up the seeds. Each of these little white thing is actually, I don't know what you call it, like a membrane in between the cover, the seed cover. And then inside is actually the seed. One of those plants you might have to touch and experience to get what I'm saying. But in any case, if you ever find this plant, part of the work is to kind of open the seed case to reveal that beautiful silvery membrane. The first time I saw this plant was actually at a home decor store. I don't know, it was like Anthropology or something like that. And I literally thought it was fake. You know, and I thought, what? That's real? That's crazy. I thought it was some kind of paper thing. And when I actually encountered it in nature, I was blown away. You know, I thought, oh wow, this is real. So again, it makes me really, or it reminds me of how amazing nature can be and how diverse. So we really don't have to resort to plastic. We don't have to resort to fake when the real thing is just as amazing. Okay, so that's Lunaria. Down. And this is kind of fun. Here's a little bouquet I've made from some of the dried flowers that I just pointed out. It's kind of fun to see it all together. And it has Lunaria, pampas grass, straw flowers, statice, and the little white ones are called Emerbium. Yeah, so this is a fun little bouquet. And this little bouquet will last years, literally. You could put it in, leave it in your house for years and it'll look just like this. I'm really happy right now that dry flowers is kind of having a moment. When I started in dry flowers, you know, it was something that people were saying like, oh, that reminds me of the 70s. And now it's becoming trendy again, and that's just, it really, yeah, it makes me really happy because that means I get to do more of what I love and get to share this passion with everybody. And to have that appreciation come up again is really great. Okay, so while we're here, I also want to show you a wreath base or a wreath form. This is made from Virginia creeper. It's an invasive vine in our garden. We have a lot of it, and it always creeps into our garden. It's Virginia creeper, and but it's easy to pull out, and it makes this really nice bendy vine. So when I was weeding it, I just thought, you know what, that could probably be used as a wreath base. So I started wrapping it in a circle and dried it, and sure enough, it's holding up really well. But you can also use willow, and you can also use grapevines. Those are all very popular plants used for wreath bases. There's one more. Oh yeah, honeysuckle. Honeysuckle is also an invasive plant around here, and it's great for making wreath bases. So if you're ever looking for a way to make natural wreath bases, look for vines. So as you can see, I just want to quickly show from this, you can choose from this whole palette of flowers and make little bouquets and attach them on, and you end up with a dry flower wreath. It's pretty cool. Okay, I think I've gone through this one before. It's yarrow, and I just wanted to mention it again. It comes in a lot of different colors, not just yellow. There's white yarrow, pink, red. There's like these beautiful kind of pastel shades. So this is a really great dry flower to use. This is pretty new to me, but I really, really like it. It's called Centaurea, and it has these fun dry pods. I love any plants that kind of look weird and unique, and this got that going for it. Okay, and then just gonna show the flowers in the bucket, and after that, I say we take a tour of the garden. Okay, so in the bucket we have Dusty Miller, which is this one. I love Dusty Miller. It's also a perennial plant. It comes back year after year, and it has this lacy look to it. It's really could be something that, you know, maybe you want in your arrangements. Something. What I've learned through experience of working with flowers is it's really nice to have a diversity of textures, to go from soft and fluffy to wispy, to lacy, or to, you know, colorful. The more of these different varieties you have, the more beautiful your arrangements will be. So next to the Dusty Millers, these are straw flowers. And as you can see, they come in myriads of colors. Okay, well, that covers it for basically a quick preview of dry flowers and what's possible. Now I want to take you into the garden and show you the plants, how they look like growing, and I'll just talk briefly a little bit about the drying process for different plants, and also a little bit about how to grow them. Okay, so see you in the garden in a little bit.